Hi everyone, I'm Hayden, and
I'm Michael.
our presentation focuses on how Italian American identity is represented, challenged, and shaped into two films, The Godfather and Vendetta. Across this course, we've learned that Italian American identity in U.S. film is not just about the characters, it's about the culture, history, and belonging. These films show Italian Americans trying to define themselves in societies that view them as either suspicious outsiders or problematic insiders.
Our thesis is that both films reveal a continuing struggle over Italian American identity. Vendetta shows Italians at the moment they are first constructed as racial outsiders in America, a group seen as dangerous, emotional, and unassimilated. The Godfather, decades later, shows how those early stereotypes didn't disappear. They evolved into iconic, cinematic identities tied to family, loyalty, masculinity, and organized crime. Together, these films show how identity is negotiated across generations, from survival and prejudice to power, masculinity, and assimilation.
In this class, we looked at how Italian American identity changes over time. We saw early stereotypes of Italians as criminals or outsiders, and we saw in later films that they tried to humanize or complicate that image. The two films we selected represent different points on that timeline. Vendetta, film made in 1999, dramatizes the 1891 lynching of 11 Italians in New Orleans, showing how Italian Americans are racialized as not quite American. The Godfather, made in 1972, portrays a later generation, Italian Americans who have gained economic success but live under the shadow of early stereotypes and cultural expectations. These films allow us to compare identity formation at two very different stages of the Italian American experience. This slide shows the main stereotypes. The Godfather builds its world around. Italians are depicted as deeply loyal to family, guided by patriarchal leadership, and shaped by Catholic tradition. Emotions, especially anger, pride, and protectiveness, are central to the portrayal of Italian masculinity. Violence is shown as a natural extension of family honor. Women have limited power. Men appear as protectors or rulers, and success is often tied to the corruption rather than the mainstream pathways. These images reflect what we learned this semester, that Italian American identity on the screen is often constructed through masculinity, family roles, assimilation pressure, and the tension between old world values and American individualism.
America has made my fortune, and I raised my daughter in the American fashion. I gave her freedom, but I taught her never to dishonor her family. She found a boyfriend, not an Italian. She went to the movies with him. She stayed out late. I didn't protest. 2 months ago, he took her for a drive with another boyfriend. They made her drink whiskey, and then they tried to take advantage of her. She resisted. She kept her honor. So they beat her like an animal. When I went to the hospital, her nose was broken. Her jaw was shattered, held together by wire. She couldn't even weep because of the pain. But I wept. Why did I weep? She was the light of my life. Beautiful girl. Now she will never be beautiful again. Sorry. Like a good American. These two boys were brought to trial. The judge sentenced them to 3 years in prison and suspended the sentence. Suspended the sentence? They went free that very day. I stood in the courtroom like a fool. And those two bastards, they smiled at me. Then I said to my wife, for justice, we must go to Don Corleone.
As I Believe in America, this opening scene sets a tone for how the film views Italian Americans. Bonacera says, I believe in America, but his experience shows the opposite. The legal system fails his family, and he has to run to Don Corleone for justice. The film uses this exact moment to show Italians as existing between two systems: the American system that excludes them, and the Italian family-based system that protects them. Visually, the contrast between the bright outdoor wedding and the dark interior office expresses this dual identity, one side festive and community-oriented, and the other side linked to secrecy and power. This reflects the broader idea from the class that Italian-American identity often exists between assimilation and cultural inheritance.
What's the matter? Huh? What's the matter?
It was my fault.
Where is
Sonny, please. It was my fault. Sonny, it was my fault. I hit him. I started a fight with him. Please, Sonny. I hit him. So he hit me.
Okay, I'm just gonna give the doctor to come and take a look at you.
Sonny, please don't do anything. Please don't do it.
Okay. What's the matter with you? What am I gonna do? I'm gonna make that baby an orphan before he's born. Huh? All right?
These spec slops still betting Yankees pretty heavy? Tell them to start taking action, all right? We lost enough money last week on the game. Oh, come here.
Fight sister again, I'll kill you.
In this clip, Sonia's violent reaction towards Carlo highlights the stereotype of Italian men as emotional and hot-tempered. This scene is chaotic, loud, and fueled by anger. This ties directly into the themes we studied: masculinity as performance, family honor as motivation, and emotion as defining cultural trait. Italian-American masculinity in many films, especially earlier ones, is portrayed as explosive and driven by loyalty. The fight shows how violence becomes a language within the family, a way to restore order and protect loved ones. It reinforces how Italian-American identity on screen often merges family loyalty with physical force.
Ci potete mettere un accordo? Io voglio pace. E lasciamo perdere che tutti sti cazzati.
Ma voi gioca...
Che?
Come si dice?
What I want,
What's most important to me is that I have a guarantee. No more attempts on my father's life.
What guarantees can I give you, Mike? I am the hunted one. I missed my chance. You think too much of me, kid. I'm not that clever. All I want is a truce.
I have to go to the bathroom. Is it all right?
You're gonna go, you're gonna go. I frisked him. He's clean.
Don't take too long. I've written it out. fin di me? Nicolozzi, tu mi capisci, no? Sei italiano come tu padri? Tu padri sta male. Bandito sta meglio. Le camere fa un giù ognuno e mettiamo tutto a posto. Steve sta lì, si deve finire.
So in this clip, Michael kills Lozo and Mikulski, and Michael begins the film as a character closest to mainstream American identity. He's educated, calm, and separate from the criminal world. But in this scene, you saw his transformation begins. He kills Lozo and Mikulski. He steps into the cultural identity he's been trying to avoid. The film suggests that no matter how much he assimilates, family obligations and the weight of cultural expectations always pull him back. This reflects a core idea from our course. Assimilation is both a gain and loss. Michael gains power and identity, but he loses his independence and the version of himself that he tries to live outside the stereotype.
Before we get into Vendetta, I want to give a little historical context for how Italians were viewed in the United States during the late 1800s and early 1900s. During this period, Italians weren't seen as fully white or fully American. Newspapers and politicians constantly pushed stereotypes, describing them as uneducated, violent, or naturally criminals. Because of these stereotypes, Italians often faced job discrimination and were limited to the hardest, lowest paying work. On top of that, politicians frequently used accusations of mafia involvement to justify unequal treatment even when there was no evidence. On top of that, politicians frequently use accusations of mafia involvement to justify unequal treatment even when there was no evidence. Legal protection was also incredibly weak. Courts rarely defended Italians from harassment or discrimination, which reinforced the idea that they didn't belong, no matter how hard they worked or how hard they tried to assimilate. This background is important because it shows the climate of fear and suspicious Italians lived under. It helps explain how the violence in Vendetta could happen. It wasn't just random, it came from years of stereotypes, fear, and discrimination that built over time.
So going to one of our readings, we learned from xenophobia and lynchings during the peak Italian immigration from 1890 to 1914. This moves into one of the most extreme examples of anti-Italian hostility, mob violence and lynchings. Italians became frequent targets of mobs, especially in the South, where one of the most shocking events was the 1891 New Orleans lynching, where 11 Italians were killed. That incident became a symbol of how deep anti-Italian hatred had grown. What's important to understand is that many of these lynchings weren't based on real evidence. They were sparked by rumors, false accusations, or public anger fed by newspapers that regularly portrayed Italians as criminals. Politicians added to this by using these cases to label Italians as dangerous outsiders. When leaders talk like that, it gives a mob sense of permission, and that's exactly what happened. The legal system rarely punished the people responsible, which sent a clear message that Italian lives weren't fully protected under American law. These events also reinforced the idea that Italians didn't truly fit into the American racial hierarchy. They weren't treated as white, and they weren't treated as citizens deserving protection. This slide helps us see why Vendetta portrays the violence the way it does. It's not exaggerated. It reflects the real atmosphere Italians were living in, where fear, stereotypes, and lack of legal protection all come together with deadly consequences.
Italian-American stereotypes in Vendetta, it brings us back to the origins of these stereotypes. Italians are showed as loud, emotional, and suspicious to the broader community. They are described as foreign, untrustworthy, and culturally separate. This film shows us how quickly fear can turn into mob mentality when a group is perceived as not one of us. The political leaders and newspapers in the film spread rumors and exaggeration, shaping public opinion and fueling hostility. The film helps us understand how Italian-American image in later movies, including The Godfather, was built on a foundation of early prejudice and violence.
We walk into court as free men.
Tonight we celebrate that
We go to Storyville.
No rest until you are free with us, huh?
Run! You hide! In 30 seconds, I'm locking this place down!
Guns! Give us guns. We need guns!
You hide, you pray! It's the best I can do. Yes, Capiano.
Go!
In this clip, the mob surrounds the jailhouse. And in the scene, we can see this crowd gather around the jailhouse long before any evidence is presented. Their anger is based on rumors and suspicion. The Italians are not treated as individuals. They're treated as a group identified by stereotypes. This moment shows how quickly a community can turn against outsiders, especially when their ethnicity is already viewed with distrust. This reflects what we learn about early Italian immigrant experiences. They were seen as culturally different, and that difference made them vulnerable to false accusations and mob judgment.
Tibi Dominus quid deliquisti. Benedictio Dei omnipotentis Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti, descendat super te et maneat semper. Amen.
This scene shows one of the most powerful moments in Vendetta. Police officers storm the Italian neighborhood and begin pulling men out of their homes without warrants, due process, or even clear evidence. The way the arrests happen, quickly, violently, and without explanation, shows how Italians are viewed not as citizens, but as a collective threat. No one is evaluated as an individual. Instead, every Italian man becomes a suspect simply because he is an Italian. This reflects the broader pattern of how immigrants were treated during this time. They were seen as outsiders whose rights could be ignored. This scene visually communicates fear, confusion, and helplessness as families watch their husbands, fathers, and sons being dragged away. The roundup sets the stage for everything that follows in the film. Once the police treat an entire ethnic group as guilty, the community feels justified in its anger and violence. It shows how discrimination by authorities creates the conditions that make mob violence possible.
The lynching scene shows the ultimate consequence of being viewed as outsiders. The mob drags Italians out and kills them publicly, without trial or evidence. Law enforcement does nothing to stop it. This is based on real events, and the film shows how stereotypes can escalate from words to violence. Italians were treated not just as different, but as expendable. This scene represents the darkest point of the Italian-American experience, a moment where identity, prejudice, and a fear combine into deadly action.
Putting these two films together lets us see the full picture of how Italian-American identity developed over time. Vendetta shows how Italians, at the moment they first arrive in America, become vulnerable, racialized, and treated as outsiders who didn't belong within the social or legal system. They're defined by rumors, stereotypes, and fear. The Godfather shows a later stage in that identity, where Italian-Americans have gained economic power and built strong communities, but still carry the weight of cultural expectations and past prejudice. Even when they succeed, they're framed through ideas of crime, masculinity, and loyalty that trace back to the earlier discrimination. Together, these films show that Italian-American identity was shaped not only by how Italians saw themselves, but also by how society interpreted them. One film shows survival under hostility, the other shows power mixed with stereotype. Looking at both helps us understand the full journey from exclusion to influence, and how cultural identity can evolve while still carrying traces of its past.
Overall, these films reveal the long journey of Italian-American identity, from early xenophobia and violence to cultural pride mixed with stereotype. By comparing these two different eras, we can better understand these pressures, expectations, and transformations that shaped Italian Americans both in history and on screen. Thank you.